WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD, the South Shores radio station. And thank you for tuning in on this Sunday morning. It is, we've had a variety of topics that we've covered, and as we're sort of approaching Earth Day, which is coming up soon, I thought it'd be a good time to talk a little bit more about electric vehicles, and we've talked about electric vehicles a lot. But with us is Chris Harto. He is a Senior Policy Analyst on Sustainability Policy at Consumer Reports. Chris, good morning, and welcome to the Car Doctor program.
Hey, happy to be here.
First off, tell us what a Senior Policy Analyst on the Sustainability Policy team is.
Yeah, so really what I do is advocate for regulations and laws that are good for consumers, while also kind of whenever a big regulation comes out, I dig in, try to understand, all the nitty-gritty details and help, all of our great writers at Consumer Reports communicate what these rules mean to the general public.
So you read all the stuff no one else wants to read?
Yep. I'm currently digging through the roughly 1,500 pages of the recent EPA proposal that they dropped last Wednesday.
Yeah, it sounds like fun. Really a good time there. So,
yeah.
But anyway, one of the things certainly is the demand for electric vehicles. And some people you talk to, they'll say, no one wants these electric vehicles. Well, at my full-time job at AAA, we ordered 35 Ford Lightning pickup trucks, and we have no idea when we're going to get them because the demand has been so strong for them.
Yeah, absolutely. The demand for EVs is really much higher than people really understand. We've done some recent survey analysis, and we found that there's actually 45 Americans who definitely want an electric vehicle for every one that's rolling off the manufacturer floor. So yeah, there's huge demand for these vehicles, at least relative to how many of them are being produced right now.
And there's some, and I don't know whether it will actually happen, whether electric vehicles are completely mandated by 2030 or 2035. I think that's really going to depend on that balance of demand and whether the manufacturers can actually do it. I'm old enough to remember when emissions laws changed years ago, and the vehicle manufacturers kind of said to the government, it ain't going to happen. We can't do this quickly. And eventually it happened, but it just was something that it couldn't happen. But I read a headline the other day, and I didn't read the story, but it said something about, auto manufacturers are going to have to continue to build gasoline cars to be able to sustain production of electric vehicles until they become that much more cost effective. Did you stumble across any information like that in your research?
Definitely automakers are planning to use profits from manufacturing gas vehicles to help fund their transition to electric vehicles. Again, consumer demand is shifting rapidly towards electric vehicles. So, how long they can maintain that, and consumers are really going to continue to want to pay top dollar for those gasoline vehicles is a question. So that the faster they can get moving on the electric vehicles and scale up those at the same time, the better off they're going to be long term.
Now, when you were kind of going through consumer demand for electric vehicles, I know at AAA we did something similar, and we found that a big percentage of people are considering an electric car in their next vehicle purchase, which could be over 4 or 5 years. And people are looking at different types. It could be something, small and compact like a Chevrolet Bolt, or it could be the latest, electric EV that might come out, or the Volkswagen minivan or microbus or whatever you want to call the van that people have a lot of interest in. What did your analysis turn up out of that?
I mean, we see more and more vehicles and more vehicle classes showing up in the electric space. You know, right now the options are still somewhat limited. Most automakers only have one or two, maybe three EVs on the market yet. But they're rapidly expanding that. They're rapidly increasing the number of models at the different price points. And we see that as really helping to kind of, increase demand over time. A lot of people, I think, are in this situation where they want an EV, but they haven't quite found the one that they want to buy, or they're not ready to buy a new vehicle yet. But over the next 2, 3, 4 years, the number of choices is rapidly expanding, which means most consumers will be able to find something that's comparable to what they want when they go to shop for an EV.
Yeah, and I was stuck in traffic at a pretty major intersection a week or so ago, and my wife and I were just sort of talking about electric vehicles, and she's like, are they as popular as people think? And, as we were sitting there and, kind of stuck watching some traffic move and other traffic not, there was a Mustang Mach-E that went by. There was 2 or 3 Teslas that went by. There was a Rivian pickup truck, only the second one I've ever seen. And then there was a Lucid that went by. And I just sort of looked at all of that and said, we're pretty much, since we've been sitting here, we're pretty much seen, almost all the electric vehicle brands that we're going to see. I think the only thing we were missing was a Volkswagen, and I think we maybe even saw a Chevrolet Bolt in the mix. So certainly we're seeing a lot of that. One of the arguments that comes out with electric vehicles sometimes, and kind of goes into whether it's fuel economy or safety, is by mandating high fuel economy numbers or mandating better, safer cars, vehicles are going to go up in cost, and people aren't going to be able to afford vehicles. And now typically the average transaction price, I guess right now, and an average, of course, is just that, is up over $50,000. But you also did another study back in February about, you looked at the fuel economy gains and those car safety improvements over 18 vehicle model years, and you found that really the prices didn't go up when you factored in inflation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Consumer Reports, we buy all of the vehicles we test. So every year we have secret shoppers who go around to local dealers, and we buy the vehicle off the lot using secret shoppers, and then we test that vehicle. We buy around 50 new vehicles every year for our test program. So we went back and looked at the actual prices we paid for the vehicles we test in our test program over, close to 20 years, roughly matching a time period when both the NHTSA CAFE standards and the EPA greenhouse gas standards were both increasing rapidly. And we did a statistical analysis. We looked at all the data, sent it to our statistics team. They did all kinds of sophisticated statistical analysis, and we found that on after you adjusted for inflation, vehicle prices didn't move. They hadn't gone up at all on an average basis. And during that same time period, we saw significant improvements in safety technology added to these vehicles, and the average vehicle was saving consumers around $7,000 in reduced fuel cost over that time period, with no increase in cost to those vehicles.
Yeah, I remember, and it doesn't seem like that long ago. Again, time flies sometimes, but I remember having what was then a compact car, and when I could hit 20 miles per gallon, it was a big deal. And now it's pretty hard to find a car that doesn't get at least 20 miles per gallon.
Yeah, absolutely. The average fuel economy has gone way up, and especially in cars. At the same time, cars have continued to get a little bit bigger, more powerful. So just consumers are getting a whole lot more for their money on a new car that they buy today versus one that they bought 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it used to be, and maybe it was 25 years ago, if a car was 300 horsepower, that was a big deal. Now there's 300 horsepower cars that are kind of everyday cars. There's nothing particularly sporty about them. They just happen to be 300 horsepower cars, and they might be doing it with a V6 engine. They might even be doing it with a four-cylinder engine, and they're returning good fuel economy on top of that. So it's interesting when you look at that, because again, I kind of remember when the fuel economy standards were coming out, and there was some coalition that was out at the time that said, well, the only way to meet this fuel economy standards are to build small, unsafe vehicles. And right now I'm looking out my window, and I see at least 4 mid-size SUVs, and these are not small, and they're not unsafe, and they get reasonably good fuel economy.
Yeah, even the smallest cars on the road that you can buy right now are a lot bigger than the mids. You look at a Honda Civic or something today versus what a Honda Civic was 20 or 30 years ago, and it's significantly bigger than an Accord, if not
Yeah, a really good point. I mean, I'm test driving a Kia Telluride right now, and it's that mid-size SUV segment is a really popular segment, and even this vehicle still, I think EPA says something like an average of 21 miles per gallon, and up to about 25 miles per gallon out on the highway, which isn't bad for a mid-size SUV that can seat 7 people.
Yeah, not at all. You would have been lucky to get 14 or 15 miles per gallon out of a vehicle like that 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. And in this particular vehicle, it has every bit of safety technology you can possibly imagine, everything from, collision warning and automatic emergency braking backing up, blind spot warning, cross traffic alert, smart cruise control with stop and go systems built into it, and even a reminder to look in the back seat and make sure you didn't leave your kids back there. So it has all of these safety innovations in the vehicle, and like you said, when you factor in the cost of what this new vehicle costs versus inflation, adjusted for inflation, the vehicle prices didn't really change that much.
No.
Which I think that really makes it interesting when you look at that. Going back to that 1,500-page document, are there any little bits and pieces out of that you can share with the audience about, so they don't have to read 1,500 pages?
Yeah. So the just at a high level, what this rule will do is set new emission standards for 2027 through 2032. And those emission standards are technology neutral. Automakers can meet those standards, using whatever technologies they have available, which could include improving the efficiency of gasoline vehicles, deploying hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and electric vehicles. EPA, in their analysis, found that EVs were likely to be the most cost-effective method for automakers to comply with these rules, but not necessarily the only method that automakers had to comply with it. With that in mind, assuming that automakers complied 100% using electric vehicles and with no other improvements to non-electric vehicles, they estimate that these rules will drive around 2/3 of vehicles to be electric by 2032. Two-thirds of new vehicles being sold being electric in 2032. But I should note that doesn't mean that 2/3 of Americans will have an electric vehicle in a little less than a decade. This is only new vehicle sales, and the U.S. vehicle fleet tends to turn over quite slowly. People only buy a new vehicle every 5-10 years in many cases. So it's really we did some math to determine what does this actually mean in terms of how many Americans will need to own an electric vehicle for automakers to meet these standards, and we found that it was about 25%. So in order to meet these standards, we need about 25% of Americans to own an electric vehicle, but in about a decade.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I said just sort of as an offhanded remark one time, I think in 15 or 20 years, a gasoline car may be as rare as a car with a clutch pedal. You don't see a lot of standard shift cars these days, but in fact, they're still around if you go looking for them, and maybe that's what a gasoline car will be like in that many years. It's really kind of hard to say at this point where it's all going to go, but it'll be interesting. And I think right now, and I've said it before, this is sort of the golden age of the automobile. This is the time where you can buy a car that's gasoline. It can be a gasoline electric hybrid. It can be a plug-in gasoline electric hybrid. It can be pure electric. Consumers have a lot of choice right now, and there's, I think there's some concern from some people that sort of a mandate of electric vehicles might limit that choice. But based on what you said, it really doesn't sound like that. It sounds like with the right work, car manufacturers can meet these regulations and be able to sell a variety of vehicles.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that for people to keep in mind is that EV technology is rapidly improving. So the vehicles that are on the road today, that are being sold today, are really in many cases automakers' first real attempts at delivering an electric vehicle, and they're learning a lot from that experience. They're learning a lot from those first vehicles that they're getting on the road, and that learning will allow them to rapidly improve those vehicles so that they have some more range, that they're more efficient, that they charge faster. A lot of work going into ensuring that the vehicles charge faster. So the vehicle that you buy today, may look pretty antiquated versus the one that someone might buy 7, 8, 10 years from now, because of this rapid improvement in the technology and how much the automakers are learning from these first EVs that they're putting out there right now.
Really good point. And if people want to read these reports and other information that you publish, do they just go to the Consumer Report website?
Yeah, there's lots of great information on the Consumer Report website. If they want to really dig into the nerdy policy stuff, they can go to cr.org/EV-policy, which is where they'll find a lot of my advocacy reports, policy reports that are a little bit more nerdy in the weeds. But if you just want to learn a lot more about electric vehicles, just go straight to consumerreports.org.
Chris, I want to thank you for taking a little time out of your Sunday morning and joining us on the Car Doctor program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, take care and have a good rest of your Sunday.
You too.
Bye-bye. Why don't we take a break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. If you would like to join us and talk about electric vehicles or any kind of vehicle or problem you're having with your vehicle, give us a call at 781-837-4900. You're listening to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24-hour 7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Don't miss the Just Steph Show every Monday night from 8 to 10 p.m. for fun guests and tips on living your best life every day. I'm bringing sexy back to Monday nights.
Tomorrow night from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Steph, who brings sexy to Monday nights, she's going to have a little run for her money because on Kevin Tachi's show on Monday Night Talk, I'm going to be on there from 7:30 to 8. So tune in for Kevin Tachi as well. But right now, let's talk to Eric from Plymouth. Eric, good morning.
Good morning to you. I was just listening to the guy's advocacy on electric cars. If you do some simple math and take the average horsepower of a U.S. vehicle and and equate that to kilowatts and treat it like a generator, to power 25% of the U.S. fleet is going to take about 9,000 gigawatts of electricity. Where are we going to get that?
I think we need flux capacitors.
Well, hey, it's not a joke. The Biden administration wants 30 gigawatts of renewable by 2030, right? Windmills, solar panels, whatever. To repower the federal fleet to electric will take about 33 gigawatts. To repower 25% of the U.S. fleet is about 9,000. I mean, these are big numbers. Like, people skipping this part of it. Where are we going to get it if they want 25% of us in electric cars?
Well, and I think that was, my comment from the beginning. The idea that this is going to work is only based on whether it actually works. I'm old enough to remember that when, the EPA mandated, certain CAFE fuel economy standards, and the vehicle manufacturers, back then were, averaging 15, and I'm making up a number, they wanted 25, and right. the vehicle manufacturer said, it ain't going to happen. We just can't do it. We can't do it in the time frame you want to do it. So that deadline blew right by. Now, does that mean that you can't do this at some point? Yeah, you might be able to, but it may not be with electric or traditional electric vehicles at all. It might be with hydrogen, and that might be the next fuel to make it work. I had he's a retired engineer from Exxon, and he has developed a gasoline car or a gasoline engine that he has put in a Prius. And it gets 120 miles per gallon, and it has very, very low emissions. And, he said to me, the patent's finally gone through on it. Here's the patent number. Check it out. He said, there's no reason why we can't have a gasoline car that can get ridiculously good fuel economy, ultra low emissions, and make it work. And he looked at things like, garbage trucks in New York, and he said, there's no reason why, they can't burn sort of recycled plastic rather than diesel fuel. So there's options that are going to come up, and people are going to figure it out. Our gasoline, I love gasoline cars. Especially fast and loud gasoline cars. I love stuff that explodes and, has fumes coming off of it and flames coming out of it. That's what I like. But some of this, some of what we're looking at, take the politics aside of it, because I'm not political at all, but look at it and go, is it going to happen? I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think, trying to get the vehicle manufacturers to do something is probably good. Whether they can actually pull it off or not, no idea. And I think what's going to make it work or not is whether it's actually even possible. Like you said, if 25% of the population drives an electric car and you need 9 gazillion kilowatts of power to make it work, and you can't do it with solar panels and other renewable. I mean, personally, the idea of having a wind farm off of Nantucket, I can't think of any more inhospitable place to put windmills than out in the middle of the ocean. To me, I mean, other than it's windy, to me it's like, I can't keep stuff in my shed without it getting rusty. The idea of putting stuff in, out in the middle of the ocean to keep it from getting, the only place I could think that could be worse is maybe like, I don't know, the salt flats or something, because then you have salt and you have wind. But the idea of a wind farm, can it provide some electricity? Sure. And I mean, at AAA, we're going through trying to electrify some of our vehicles. We're putting solar panels on the roofs of the buildings we own. We're trying to do a lot of things that try to help with the economy. But, whether all this is going to work, not quite sure.
Well, my take on the whole thing was, instead of the government stepping in and mandating it, something that, we need that much electricity. That's a fact. All right? Not disputable. If you want those cars electric, it's a huge amount of power. Why don't we let the free market economy take over instead of having our government completely and continually get in the way and mandate these things and waste our money in the meantime?
Well, I think
I'm a constitutional capitalist. You brought up the windmills out in the water, the wind turbines. The commercial fishing fleet literally has one of the smallest carbon footprints of any protein-producing industry in the world, and it's all non-genetically modified organic product, right? And the oceans are responsible.
I have some of it thawing. I have some of it thawing in my sink right now. But go ahead.
Yeah, about 50% of the world's protein is derived from the oceans. There's no reason to put the windmills out there. They got windmill in Hull that they can drive up to and fix. But that thing hasn't worked for 3 years. They took one down in Kingston just a couple of years ago. They got one up in Blackburn Industrial Park in Gloucester where one of the blades fell off. But listen, I apologize. This is a car show. I just have an issue with the electric cars. So I'll stop there.
Let's go out and burn some rubber. How's that?
I'm with you on that one, brother. Let's go diesel. No computers on my truck.
All right. Take care, Eric.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Let's go to Tom in Weymouth.
Hi, John.
Hey, Tom.
I'm pretty much agreement with the last call. He said a lot of things. And I'm going to say, I have a 10-year-old car I bought brand new, and never have issues with it. And the one thing that I'm on my third is a battery, and I don't abuse it. But everything else runs fine. And it seems today that we have finally perfected the gasoline car. They're fantastic. They run hundreds of thousands of miles. You really don't have much issue. And now I'm like, why? Why is the government doing this? Why does the government really get behind things? It's money. It's really, to me, with government corruption. There's lots of money to be made. They went to windmills, and they're all environmentalists. They kill millions of birds. Now they're finding out it's affecting whales. They're just always contradicting and lying. So I wouldn't buy one, honestly, for that reason. I won't capitulate to them, to be honest with you. I just don't trust government. But the other thing is, another thing about the car is they're making so much high horsepower. If a lot of these car manufacturers didn't make that much, and I'm a free market guy, we'd be getting great mileage right across the board. You know what I'm saying? Instead of, do we need 350 horsepower cars? So,
well, I mean, there are those people who think that, if you... if a little horsepower is good, a lot of horsepower is better, and I guess if you're right, do we really need cars that have top speeds of 180 miles an hour when the speed limit, in the fastest speed limit states might be 80? Do you really need 150 mile an hour speedometer for that matter? And I think the idea, I like what Eric said. He's a constitutional capitalist.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I sort of like the ring of it. But the idea that I like choice. I like the idea. If you want to go out and buy a $35,000 Chevrolet Bolt that plugs in and charges up and does well, go out and buy it. If you want to buy a 707 horsepower, Dodge Demon, go ahead and buy it. Yeah, but it's interesting that, and we did a study years ago, and we compared, and this was probably 1990 or maybe 95, and we measured the tailpipe emissions of a 1995 Mustang GT, and it was less pollution came out of that car than 50 1965 Mustangs, and it was faster. It ran better. It handled better. And you're like, well, I guess technology and development and all of those things really did build a better, faster, more fuel-efficient, lower-emissions vehicle. And would that have happened without the government sort of saying you have to do it? I don't know. No. Like Eric said, let the free market make the decision. And that's exactly what's going to happen. If, a whole bunch of people look at electric vehicles and go, we don't want to buy one. And that's kind of what it is right now is, a lot of people want to buy electric vehicles because they're new and they're different. We didn't
go from a horse and buggy to a car because the government mandated it. It's because it was a better thing,
Yeah, back, when Henry Ford was inventing the first car, what people wanted was faster horses. They didn't necessarily want a car; they just wanted a horse that went faster, and that's a little bit of what swayed the market. And I think today, you kind of look at it and go, well, if everything's electric and you can go 300 miles between charges and, 1 out of every 3 charging stations is broken and, America, I think, relies on the, great American road trip where families still get in their cars in the summertime and go on long road trips. And if they can't charge up their electric cars on the way, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. I think I asked you this one time. Like you had Consumer Reports on a couple of times. Has anybody ever taken a gas engine car, just say a reasonable size engine, 4-cylinder, 2.4, and did a total comparison, empty tank, put 10 gallons in, take an electric car, charge it up, get that cost per kilowatt, but also break down the kilowatt cost over the country because it varies greatly, and what really comes out better? I mean, I just haven't seen that. I don't know. Have you ever seen that? I mean, really done scientifically. I want to really know.
I have seen it, and it depends on the vehicle. Consumer Reports actually came out with a study, and they did a comparison between some electric vehicle and something like a Chevrolet Suburban. And the Chevrolet Suburban, at the end of the day, did better because it could carry more people, it could do more stuff, and it did. And I'm pretty sure it was Consumer Reports. Maybe it was some other publication, but they looked at it and they said, in this particular case, it's more efficient. Yeah, in Massachusetts, where we pay 25 or more cents per kilowatt hour, electric vehicles might not make the most amount of sense. And in other states, there's some states that electric rates are 10 and 12 cents per kilowatt hour. In that case, it makes some sense. And even the most staunch electric vehicle advocate will say that that first few years of owning an electric vehicle is not necessarily particularly environmentally friendly. You got to keep that car for. I remember talking to the woman who was the head of sustainability or something like that for Ford, and she said, "Yeah, you really need to keep something like an electric Mustang Mach-E for 7 or 8 years before all of a sudden the numbers go in the other direction because you look at cost and development and environmental things and everything that goes into making a battery. And if that car's at 2 or 3 years old, it's much more environmentally effective to make a gasoline car. But once it gets to be 7 or 8 years old, it might start to go the other way. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to depend on it. Like Chris Harto said, was we still really are in the kind of infant stage of electric vehicle development. I mean, electric vehicles have been around for a long, long, long time, but from the from the 80s till now, there was a pretty big change. And really, electric vehicles until Tommy Tesla came out with his, Elon Musk came out with the Teslas, that's what really kind of turned the market around. I remember when, Tesla and Fisker were the first real electric vehicle manufacturers. And I remember I was standing talking to someone, and we both kind of said, I think in the history books, we're going to look back and say Tesla and Fisker were sort of like Tucker. They built a few cars, they had a lot of fun, maybe they made some money, and in the history books we're going to say, well, this was something that worked or didn't work. And I guess I was, we were half right, because, Fisker went out of business. They're coming back with, Fisker Ocean. But, Fisker at the time went out of business, and, Tesla's there's a lot of Teslas on the road and a lot of pretty happy Tesla owners. The real question will be when those cars get to be 10. The average new car on the road now is almost 11 years old. So, what will happen when those Teslas turn 10, 11, 12, 20 years old? Will they be good used cars still? Like a 20-year-old, Toyota Camry or 20-year-old Ford Taurus can still be a pretty good used car. Will a 20-year-old Tesla be a good used car? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows.
Right, but I just think that a lot of people that buy electric cars really don't really know much about cars. I think they're just people that kind of go along. Well, oh, this is the thing. I mean, the more people that I know that know more about cars tend to not want them. And also, if you ask a young person, I ask a lot of young people, 20 years old, 19, like, what car would you like? And they'll go, oh, a Tesla. And I go, how come? Because it's cool. It's a cool thing to have, And it's because it was expensive, and you don't see them. And it's not real reasoning because it's a great car. It's just, it's a cool car because nobody has them. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, who was the guy from Tool Time? What's his name? The guy
Tim or something.
Tim Allen. Tim Allen has a very extensive car collection, but he drives a Tesla. And somebody said, somebody said to him, "Why do you drive a Tesla?" And he goes, "It's fast, it's quiet." He said, he says it's kind of like a video game. He said, but do I like it more than I like my 500 horsepower Mustang? No, not really. But he said, it's just another car. My old boss, who was the CEO of AAA, when I first met him, he was driving a Ford Taurus, and then as he became more CEO-ish, I guess he bought a Lincoln, then he bought a Caddy. And then I said to him, Mark, what's the next car you're going to buy? And he said, I've already ordered it. I ordered a Tesla. I said, Tesla? How come? And he goes, I wanted a luxury car and an American car. And that, he said, it just happens to be electric. And he said, I've tried Lincoln, I wasn't happy. I tried Cadillac, I wasn't happy. I'm going to see how the Tesla works out. And he's also a car collector. He has a bunch of a couple of performance cars, a couple of British car. He's got an MG TD, and he's got an Austin Healey 1000. He's got some pretty cool cars. But he has he bought a Tesla because that was the reason. He said, I wanted an American luxury car. I want an American car. And he said, I've given the American cars a chance, and I wasn't real happy with them.
But that American car he bought probably cost $100,000 too. So it's not really mainstream. I mean, it's okay to do that. You can afford it, but I'm saying he's not really driving. There's three different Teslas, wasn't there? Teslas. I don't know them that well, but I mean, I guarantee he's not buying the low end or the mid range. He's buying the high end one. Which anybody.
He ended up getting rid of the high end one, and he bought two Model 3s. So he bought two of the cheaper ones because I don't know why. Because he did. Maybe he wanted the tax deduction
wasn't what he expected, maybe, and then rationalization came in.
or he could have wanted the tax deduction.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
all right. Always a pleasure. Take care, Tom. Bye-bye.
Another capitalist.
All right. Take care. Our phone number is 781-837-4900. 781-837-4900 is how you get through. Why don't we take another break if we could? Sound okay with you there, Mr. Jesse?
Sure thing.
All right. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24/7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Talk radio with a South Shore point of view. Hi, I'm Kevin Tachi. Join me tomorrow for Monday Night Talk, where the South Shore comes to talk. Tomorrow night after the 6 o'clock news here on 95.9 WATD.
Don't miss the Just Steph Show every Monday night from 8 to 10 p.m. for fun guests and tips on living your best life every day. I'm bringing sexy back to Monday nights.
Tomorrow night from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD.
Hi, it's John Paul, the car doctor. Thinking of buying a new car, selling the car you have, or just trying to get rid of that pesky check engine light? Join me on WATD every Sunday morning at 11. We'll have interesting guests, the latest news from the automotive industry, play a little car trivia, and answer all of your car questions. It all happens each Sunday morning at 11 on 95.9 WATD.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24-hour 7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Well, since we've been talking about electric vehicles, and I actually got a request to talk about the electric vehicle I drove last week, which was that BMW, and somebody said to me, I kind of like the idea of it. Can I hear the review again? So why don't we do that right now, too? And if you would like to join us, again, our phone number is 781-837-4900. So the BMW iX, which was what I drove, is the manufacturer's first all-electric SUV. The iX comes in 2 trim levels, the iX50 and the high-performance iX M60. The 50 comes with 2 electric motors that produce a very healthy 516 horsepower. The M option increases the horsepower to an almost ridiculous. And you know, like Tom from Weymouth said, do we really need 300 horsepower, 400 horsepower cars? Well, the BMW M60 is 610 horsepower and 749 foot-pounds of torque. So as much as some people might say electric vehicles are boring, when you have almost 750 foot-pounds of torque, it ain't boring. It really isn't. The electric range, on the sticker, if you will, said something like 280 miles. I charged it up, and I can only charge up on 110 volts because that's all I have. I haven't committed to buying an electric vehicle charger and don't know if I really will ever. But on 110 volts, it took a ridiculously long time to recharge. But I guess maybe doing it that slowly, it was up over like 380 miles that way. When I charged it up, I did charge it at a level 2 charging station, and it said 320, so it was still above the stated mileage. But charging up really slow, got it up, I think it was almost 380 miles. If you had level 3 charging, the fast style charging, you add about 90 miles of range in about 10 minutes. So, if you were out somewhere and, stopped at 7-Eleven or Burger King or something, and it had charging. And that's something I actually saw the other day. I went by a 7-Eleven. They had charging stations sort of over in the corner of the lot. On the road, again, the iX is really fast. It handles well. The ride's pretty comfortable. The steering's nice. It's actually very BMW-like. It's pretty light at low speeds. It feels nice at high speeds. You get good road feel with it. Overall, it was really good. The cabin's really comfortable, supportive seats, offer plenty of adjustments. My wife, who's 5'5", right in the middle of the head restraint area or the seat, there's sort of an opening. And when this was a car we were stuck in traffic with, by the way, and she kind of put her head back against the seat and said, "This metal thing is not comfortable." So if you're shorter and you're considering one of these cars, and again, you shouldn't drive with your head against the head restraint. It's there to protect you if you do get in a crash, but it's not a head rest, it's a head restraint. But you might find yourself as a passenger or just a shorter person, and you might go, this isn't comfortable. Just something to be aware of. The instrument cluster is ridiculous. It's a it has this like curved display screen, so it looks like kind of a cool television set sort of thing, but it's a 12-inch instrument cluster on one side and a 15-inch center instrument display on the other side. It uses iDrive 8, which is the 8th version of iDrive, which when iDrive first came out, I'm like, this is awful. It has gotten better and better because they've made it less and less sophisticated, I guess. It does have head-up display, and it has this really augmented view on the navigation, so it actually brings up what you're really seeing in front of you on the nav screen, and it has like this arrow system that tells you, here's, turn right at this, after this blue truck goes by, because it's showing you a picture of the blue truck. So it's kind of neat. The voice command system, which I generally hate, was probably the best voice command system I ever used. I don't know who makes it, but it works really, really well, as opposed to some of the earlier ones that didn't work well at all, and still on some of the new cars I drive, they don't work well. This one worked really good to the point where you could tell it to change the cabin temperature, find a different radio station, do all kinds of different stuff. It worked really, really good. And I think I mentioned this, and I think this is one of the things the person who asked me to do the review over again said something about the door handles. What was up with the door handles? And it's sort of a reminiscent of an older car that you stick your hand up in a slot in the door, and inside there's a kind of a button that you squeeze to open the door. If you're wearing winter gloves, I'm not so sure you could get your hand up in there if you had a big hand. So on the inside, to open the door, there's a push button. There's a redundant switch on the door to be able to open it if all the power goes out in the car. One of the things that I think BMW needs to work on is the sound when the door closes. It is a soft closed door, so ideally you close the door, just let it click, and it sucks itself shut. Cool when it works. But most people get out of the car and slam the door shut. When you do this, it tries to catch itself, and it does not sound good when that happens. It makes this really weird sound, and it just makes a car, this very expensive, very high performance luxury car, just sound kind of cheap. But overall, the BMW iX M60 is a very impressive electric SUV that offers a blend of luxury performance, environmentally friendliness. It's an excellent choice for drivers that have a generous budget and are looking for a premium electric SUV with cutting-edge technology and a range that, in some cases, rivals many gasoline cars. It's easy to see how this BMW won the overall award from the 2023 AAA Car Guide. So there it is. Speaking of more electric cars, Lamborghini is going to have its first plug-in hybrid, and almost 1,000 horsepower. So who's going to buy a Lamborghini? Somebody will. But Lamborghini is lifting the wraps on a powertrain specs for its first plug-in hybrid supercar. It's set to be unveiled just this month in Europe. It doesn't even have a name yet. It uses a naturally aspirated, so non-turbocharged, supercharged V12, coupled with 3 electric motors. One will be mounted transversely, integrated into the car's 8-speed gearbox. The other 2 will power the front wheels together. 986 horsepower. Back to what Tom said. Do we need 986 horsepower? I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm glad you can get it if you want to get it. I don't know. For 2024, the GMC Hummer EV can help you get a charge. According to an article here, GMC is expanding its charging capability of the Hummer EV so they can act as generators and send a charge to other electric vehicles. This is one of the reasons at work we were buying the Ford Lightning pickups, because they can provide sort of level 2 charging. Right now, we're helping people with electric vehicles. We have a big gasoline generator that we have mounted on some of our trucks. And if an electric vehicle runs out of electricity, we can go out and sit there for a while and put enough electricity back in that car to get them going again. The Hummer EV Edition pickup will be available as a 2024 model year. It has an 11.5 kilowatt AC charging capacity. The boost will give the Hummer EV the ability to not only charge faster, but also offer onboard power for the first time through a power station generator, including the ability to send 6 kilowatts of charge to other EVs. The capability and the 19.4 kilowatt onboard charger come standard on the 2024 vehicles in trims 2X and above. The brand said that it includes the SUV edition as well as some other stuff. So kind of interesting stuff there. I think what's going on with consumers will make consumers will actually make the choice on what's going to happen with electric vehicles. Some of the stuff that kind of came in the mailbag, if you will, this week. Some of the questions I got. Some were pretty simple. One was, what do you think about going to the car wash and getting the spray on car wax? Is it worth the money? It can be, but it isn't. It doesn't take the place of a real hand applied wax. It's a spray wax. It causes the water to bead up a little bit. Is it better than nothing? Yes. Is it take the place of putting on real wax? Nope, not at all. Somebody wrote to me, and they recently experienced a scary situation with their 2009 Ford F-150. Upon acceleration to get their vehicle up to 60 miles an hour, the car just kept going. And then all of a sudden the vehicle took off by itself. The engine revved up to almost 6,000 RPM. When this happened, I had no brakes. It was like stepping on a brick. The truck gained speed up to about 80. They put the vehicle in neutral to glide over to the side of the road. Nothing was stuck under the gas pedal. What could cause this? It sounds absolutely like the throttle was stuck open. When that happens, engine vacuum will drop, but you have vacuum booster, so you should have gotten at least a couple of brake applications out of that. But the pedal certainly can get hard when it runs out of engine vacuum. And also the brakes can overheat. As you start to decide something's wrong, you step on the brake pedal, and maybe not real hard at first, and then the brakes start to overheat, and then they start to fade. So you get this combination of brake fade and a hard brake pedal. This Ford truck, even though it's not a new Ford truck, doesn't have a physical connection between the gas pedal and the throttle body. So there's no cable that runs from the gas pedal to the throttle body like old cars with, fuel injection or carburetors did. So I would be looking at the throttle body, but I'd also be looking at maybe things like cruise control issues, and I'd also be looking for codes and a variety of different things that could cause that, just to see what's going on. Somebody else has almost a similar vehicle, only even older, a 1999 Ford F-250. The check engine light's on. They scan the computer. They got a code 1401. The question is, do I replace the DPFE sensor or the EGR valve? Well, that code means there's an issue with that system, and my answer is more testing is necessary. The digital pressure feedback electronic sensor is an integral part of the EGR valve, the exhaust gas recirculation valve, because in the world of cars, you can't have too many acronyms, it seems like. But the DPFE sensor provides information to the powertrain control module, another three-letter acronym, PCM, to tell you how much exhaust gas is flowing through the system. Without testing the circuit, all I can really do is tell you the most common fix is to replace the sensor itself, not the EGR valve. You can do some testing of the EGR valve, see if it's working okay. But the most common fix is replace the sensor. A lot of people, a lot of technicians won't even take a chance. They'll replace the sensor and the EGR valve all at one time. A tire question. I should leave this for the folks at Sullivan Tire. I recently had a screw in my car's tire. It was close to the sidewall, so the tire store said to replace the tire. Here's the issue. They installed the correct size and the same brand, but a slight variation from the other tires. Would this be a problem? So in other words, I guess the tread is a little bit different. Same name brand, same type of tire, everything together. It's not ideal, but it shouldn't really cause any problems. Ideally, it would be best to replace them in pairs. Might not be able to afford that. The only real problem I've ever encountered on doing that is on a rare occasion, the different tread patterns will set up like a weird harmonic, and you might get like a weird noise you've never heard before. And it only happens at certain speeds, kind of a weird thing that will happen. Ideally, replace tires in pairs when you can, but if you can't because of whatever reason, or the other tires are in really good shape, yeah, putting the one tire on with the little bit different tread, but you've done the best you can. You've gone with the same brand, same size, same type, just they modified the tread design. And we'll do one more here. Somebody owns a 2003 Toyota Camry. It's a 4-cylinder engine. It's got 110,000 miles on it. Recently noticed the car was running a little hot due to a loss of coolant. The mechanic attributed the loss of coolant to a blown cylinder head gasket. He stated this occurred because the bolts holding down the cylinder head to the block loosened due to worn threads in the block. He further stated the worn threads had to be drilled out and replaced by a heavy-duty thread repair kit at a cost of about $3,500. He also stated this was a common problem with the Toyota engine, and he wasn't sure about the reliability or durability of the repair. A nearby Toyota dealer agreed with my mechanic's opinion, stating the repair, if done correctly, was 80% effective. Neither my mechanic or the Toyota dealer suggested a head gasket sealant, such as Bars Leak, Blue Devil, or K-Seal. I would appreciate your advice regarding my options. Do I have to replace the head gasket, or use a head gasket sealer, or junk the car? Well, the helicoil wire thread insert is actually what Toyota recommends, and as long as the block and the head are in pretty good shape, the repair should be fine. I'm not a big believer in head gasket sealer, but they work about 50% of the time. I've had pretty good luck with Blue Devil and K-Seal. I like K-Seal a little bit better, although it's a little harder to find sometimes, because you don't need to remove the thermostat and drain all the coolant. Blue Devil, you're supposed to pull the thermostat, drain all the coolant, put water in it, put the Blue Devil in it, let it circulate around for an hour, then drain it back out, put the coolant back in, put the thermostat back in. The K-Seal, you just dump it in. Again, seems to work about 50% of the time. The question is, should you fix a 20-year-old Toyota? As good as Toyota products are, it's still a 20-year-old car, and certainly at the end of its life, I don't know, 20-year-old Toyota, I think I'd try the K-Seal. I don't know that I would put $3,500 into a repair of a head gasket, even though it's only got 110,000 miles on it. Well, that is our program for today. We caused a little controversy, and that's okay. I like doing that once in a while, I guess, too. Actually, next week we're going to be talking to a coworker of mine, Lauren Paterno from AAA, about a little bit on the same subject about the environment and all with AAA strategy. We want to share that. But until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car, and if you see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.